Today, we're going to talk about something that affects millions of us, but often gets misunderstood: mental illness. We're going to strip away the stigma and look at these conditions for what they truly are: disorders of the brain. So let's get right into it, with a focus on the science, the facts, and most importantly, on hope.
And this right here, this artwork just nails the whole spirit of what we're talking about today. It's such a powerful message, right? A plea for a chance to grow and transform. This whole explainer isn't about fear. It's about understanding that journey and giving people the space they need to heal.
All right, so here's our game plan. We've broken it all down into 5 key parts. First, we'll talk about reframing mental illness as a brain disorder. Then, we'll get into the science. After that, we'll touch on a couple of common types, explore the very real path to recovery, and then we'll wrap up with how you can be an amazing ally.
Okay, first things first. The absolute most important thing we can do is shift our perspective. This is not about a person's character or a lack of willpower. It's about biology. It's about the brain.
This quote from NAMI, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, really says it all. This is the core idea. Think about it. We see a cardiologist for our heart, an orthopedist for our bones. It's the same thing. Psychiatry is about the health of the brain. And once you see it as a medical condition, everything else starts to make so much more sense.
So what do we actually mean by mental disorder? Well, the official definition comes from the DSM, which is basically the handbook that clinicians use. And it describes a disorder as a pattern that causes real distress or gets in the way of a person's ability to function in their life. You see, it's a clear medical description, not some kind of moral judgment.
And this is so important. It's all about our language. We classify the disorder, not the person. When you say an individual with schizophrenia, you're putting the person first. It seems like a small tweak in how you say something, but wow, it makes a huge difference in showing respect.
Okay, so if these are brain disorders, what does that actually look like? How is the brain affected? Let's jump into our next section and check out the science behind it all. It turns out it's a pretty complex mix of a few key things.
So what causes a brain disorder? Well, it's almost never just one single thing. It's more like a combination of factors. First, you've got genetics, which can kind of set the stage. Then you've got the brain's own chemistry, the whole system of messengers flying around in there. And finally, you have the environment, things like stress or trauma that can act as a trigger. It's the way all 3 of these things interact.
To really get the brain chemistry part, you've got to know how the brain talks to itself. It's this amazing little 3-step process. You have these neurons, which are like the brain's wiring. They send a signal that triggers these chemical messengers called neurotransmitters, and those little messengers then zip across a tiny gap, called a synapse, to land on a receptor. This incredible dance happens constantly, and it's what controls how we think, feel, and act.
Which brings us to treatment. How does something like therapy actually work on your brain? It's not just talking about your problems. It's actually a type of learning that physically creates new pathways in the brain. I love this analogy. It's like a coach helping a softball player fix their pitch. Through practice and repetition, the new motion becomes second nature. Therapy does the same thing. It helps you build new, healthier patterns of thinking until they become the brain's new go-to.
All right, so we've covered the what and the how. Now let's make this all a bit more real by taking a quick look at a couple of the most common categories of these brain disorders.
First up, anxiety disorders. Over 40 million adults in the US deal with them. I mean, just think about that number for a second. It's huge. But here's the part that's really wild. Even though these disorders are very treatable, only about 1/3 of the people who are suffering actually get help. That's a massive gap that we really need to close.
And then you've got mood disorders, like major depression. And what this chart shows is pretty telling. Women are diagnosed about twice as often as men. Now, the thinking behind this is that it's likely a mix of things, from physiological factors like hormones to social factors, like the different kinds of stress women often face in our society. And that brings us to what is, honestly, the most important part of this whole chat, the path to recovery. Because the big message here, the one I really want you to take away, is that treatment works. Recovery isn't just a possibility, it's the expectation. So let's just ask the big question that I know is on everyone's mind. Is this a life sentence? Is recovery really a realistic goal, especially for people with serious mental illness? And the answer, backed up by the data, is a huge, resounding yes. Just look at these numbers. With the right treatments, 80% of people with major depression recover. And for schizophrenia, a condition that so many people mistakenly think is hopeless, a full 60% of people recover. Let that sink in. For brain disorders,
Recovery is the norm, not the exception.
This is such a perfect way to think about it. You know, we don't expect someone with diabetes to just get over it. We expect them to manage their condition with treatment and lifestyle changes so they can live a full, normal life. It is exactly the same for a chronic brain disorder. It's all about management, and living a full, happy life is absolutely the goal.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. Now that we know this stuff, what can we actually do? How can we be there for the people in our lives? And, for ourselves, too. This is some super practical, really great advice. Some of the big takeaways for me are: have hope for them even when they can't. Encourage them to do small, realistic things, not giant leaps. And please, never, ever say cheer up or snap out of it. And remember this last one. It's crucial. You are there to support them, not to fix them. You're not responsible for their happiness, but your compassion can make all the difference in the world.
And this is what it all comes down to. This is the core message. Recovery is not some myth. It's real. It happens for the majority of people. And help is out there. From therapy and medication to support groups, nobody has to go through this alone.
So I'll leave you with this one final thought to chew on. We go to the dentist for a checkup. We see a doctor for a fever, and we don't think twice about it. How can we, all of us together, make caring for our brain our most complex, most important organ, just as normal, just as routine, and just as free from shame? Thanks for tuning in.